This is episode number 132, featuring artist J.R. Baldini, who is the executive director of the International PleinAir Painters.
This is the PleinAir Podcast with Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of PleinAir magazine. In the PleinAir Podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called PleinAir, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plain air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Eric Rhodes.
Well, thank you, announcer Jim Kipping, and welcome to the PleinAir Podcast. My name is Eric, and I hope you're having a great summer of painting. Man, I am. I love to get out and paint. I had a big group of painters up in the Adirondacks with me. We had more fun than legally possible. Well, we didn't go quite that far, but we met a lot of new people, painted a lot of waterfalls, made some new friends. Really love these events because there's time to get to know people on a much more personal level, than, say, the convention or something. Even then, I get to know a lot of people. But this way, I get to know their work, to see how others respond to their work. And it's been a chance for me to even find and identify some people who could be potential people to feature in the magazine, which has been nice. It's kind of fun to see them. It's also fun to see people grow. Like a lot of these people have been with us for 9 years in a row, and we've been together every year, and some of them are really becoming rock star painters because, it's just a chance to watch them grow year after year. Anyway, I'll be doing the Adirondacks one more time for sure, which is next June. It'll be our 10th annual, so we'll probably come up with something fun and special to do. But I've got another event like this coming up in September. We call it Fall Color Week. We're going to do it where Georgia O'Keeffe lived at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. And we're going to paint there in the area for a week, probably go up to Taos, do some other areas, things around there. But you can learn more about that at fallcolorweek.com. If you're new to this whole plein air painting thing, you should go to the website we have called outdoorpainter.com. You can pick up our free 240 tips on plein air painting. Good way to kind of get started and learn about the whole plein air world. Of course, you can get PleinAir magazine there too. Coming up after the interview, I'm going to be answering some art marketing questions in the Marketing Minute. Got some good ones today. Anyway, let's get right to our interview with J.R. Baldini. J.R. Baldini, welcome to the PleinAir Podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here talking with you today.
So I'm really excited because you've done so much for plein air painting and for the plein air movement. You started an organization how long ago now?
It's going to be 18 years in October.
Okay, so let's tell everybody about the organization and what happened in the beginning and how it has blossomed from there.
Well, the entire organization started after I moved to Canada. I'm originally from New York State, and I did a whole bunch of stuff in New York State and then landed in Canada because I got married to this fabulously talented photographer. And my whole world changed because I was a plein air painter in New York. And as you know, plein air painting has always been regional. If you look at plein air paintings, you can always pinpoint where the painting was done, where the group was from. And not only that, but I'm on a border town. I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario. And so it presented a problem because I've had instances with customs. I've had times where I've sent very small pieces to magazines that they asked for publishing, and I've had to get brokers or power of attorney to get my own work back. So the border has presented quite a problem as far as me doing things outside of Canada. So the beginning of PleinAir International was really tied into 9/11. And up until that time, I just kind of floated around here trying to figure out what I could do. couldn't ship anything to galleries anymore, couldn't take part in organizations that were in the States. And so I was sitting like everybody else watching what was going on the TV. And I not only felt separated from my country, but I felt separated from my state. As a New Yorker, I watched the same as everybody else did, and I was heartbroken with what was going on, but I felt so detached, not emotionally, but physically, from my family, from my friends, from everything in the area that I was brought up. It was heartbreaking to watch. And so after that weekend, I thought and thought and thought, and I've always been sort of an organizer as a kid in school. If I wanted to learn how to do something, or if I wanted to change my situation in some way, I would recruit people. It would either be my classmates or it would be their four parents. And if I wanted to learn how to do writing, or I wanted to learn how to sew something, I would make up a club, and we would all meet at different people's houses, and I would learn how to do all these things. So I thought and thought and thought, and finally I got to the point where I thought, I can do something about this. I can do something so that plein air painters are cross borders, so that there's nothing that defines them by a border. I can do something different. And so I remember the day I pushed the button on that Yahoo group, the first Yahoo group that I started, and some of the people in my organization right now are still members from that Yahoo group. And I did it with hesitation, but I thought, what do I have to lose? And immediately that day, I got tons of people on the group, and we eventually got a website, and it was very important to me to put a statement of purpose on the website. And the statement was that International Plein Air Painters was a blanket organization with no regards to regions or borders, and it was for plein air painters and supporters, and especially supporters of the plein air movement, because as you know, the plein air movement started really kicking in about 3 years before International Plein Air Painters came on the scene. And my introduction to plein air painting goes back way further than that, when we were just called outdoor painters. And so that really changed my life, becoming a plein air painter. I was a kid that was sent to art school when I was 10 years old, and it was Munson Williams Proctor's School of Art, and is in a small town called Utica, New York, right in the middle of New York State. And my parents sent me there, I think because the nuns at the private school that I went to sort of declared me the artist of the school, which was great for me because I got out of a lot of classes by doing projects and stuff like that. But when I got to Munson Williams Proctor, I was actually in classes with adults, and I was doing very, very tight studio painting, and I thought it was great because I was painting with real oil paints, and I thought it was really a big deal. But the part of it that was so wonderful for me was also a part that isolated me, because I was doing things a little more advanced than other kids were, and it made me a bit of a loner. I was a bit of a sickly child, and so I think my parents thought that the painting part of it, the art part of it, was a way to keep me connected. And I thank them every day now for that, because I never wanted to be anything else. I was never a kid that, wanted to be an actress or wanted to be a policeman or, something like that. I just always thought of myself as an artist. And I think that was really cemented when adults actually called me that. So for me to begin this worldwide organization wasn't really out of the ordinary for me, because I would be the kid that would be organizing backyard carnivals and talent shows, and of course I was the director. I wasn't doing any of the acting or singing. You wouldn't want to hear me sing, to tell you the truth.
Oh, come on, let's hear you sing.
No, I'd have to do "Oh Canada" now.
Oh,
So.
Canada.
So it was just a natural thing, you know. My sisters would say, you know, I was bossy, but it was just a natural thing for me to do, to organize things that I wanted to see get done.
Did you know that the O Canada national anthem was written by an American?
Was it really?
Yeah, Walt Woodward, I believe is his name. I met him. They ran a national contest for a new national anthem. This was back in the 70s, I believe.
Probably.
Yeah, and it was an American who won it. Anyway, so I'm confused, and I just want to help. I want you to help me understand this a little bit more. The purpose of the organization. You're talking about a lot of the issues that you faced, about border issues and shipping paintings and things like that. What is the purpose of the organization? Help me understand that a little bit more in depth.
The main purpose of the organization, which is why we started in 2001. By 2002, I came up with the idea to have a worldwide paint out. And the reason for that was because the people that couldn't belong to regional organizations or had nothing in Canada, we have a lot of land here, but we don't have a lot of people here like we do in the States. And so people were spaced out much further here and didn't have access to groups and stuff. So my whole idea was to bring people together through a worldwide paint out. And usually when you're in a small town, which is like you know, New York is all made up of small towns. When you're in a small town, it's very difficult. Yes, your friends know you paint, but it's very difficult to get past your circle of friends, to get your name out and to get advertising. If you're buying advertising in a small town paper, you're paying a lot of money and hoping that somebody can see it, although no one's doing that anymore. So my idea was that if they were to tie into an international event, which means a weekend of painting worldwide, that would be a news story that would interest publishers, newspaper people, as opposed to someone saying, okay, I'm having an art show this weekend, can you come look at my gallery work?
So it was an excuse to give, it was to give people a sense of community when they had no community to be involved with in their local market, and it was an opportunity to give them publicity.
Exactly.
All right.
And we do have a sample press release that's still the same one that we use, that people can get on our website if they want to join PleinAir Paint Out this year. So go ahead.
Tell me, you've been doing these international paint outs. I remember the very first one way back. And so what are you up to now? How many people do you have participating? And then how do you highlight all of that? How do we see what the various people are doing?
Well, we still do the registration online. And then we do promoting. We always do promoting for the Worldwide Paint Out. People do not have to be a member of IPAP to take part in the paint out. But they are listed online, and they're listed with, they fill out a form, there's a contact. It tells specifically where they're going to be painting, so that if they don't have a group and they're registering but hoping to meet other people, people will be able to find them and paint with them that weekend. Now, from the very first paint outs, that's how a lot of these smaller groups were formed. Going way back to the first couple of paint outs, after the paint outs, I would get tons of CDs with images from people from all over the world, letters from people saying, wow, you know, after I put my stuff up on your website, I got contacts from people that I didn't even know were plein air painters, and now we're all out there together, and we formed a small group, and there's 6 of us or there's 20 of us. And so a lot of that happened from the very first paint outs. And that was very rewarding to see that people were getting a benefit from it. And they were able to say, hey, we are painting today. They would make up signs. The best ones are the people that are in Italy and Spain and Brazil. Those are our biggest groups. And they make T-shirts and they make banners. And it's a big deal because they're tying it to something that everybody's doing globally on the same weekend.
So do you have any idea how many members you have?
I have that are active members. I have on average about 100, and there's probably maybe a 20% flip rate every couple years. You know, some people come in for a year or two, some people, leave after a year or two.
So what is the benefit of being a member? Because if anybody can participate in the annual paint out, why would membership be important?
We have, from the beginning, we still have charter members. Our organization has an advisory panel. It has elected, those were elected. We have an elective signature membership. We have associate members, and we're constantly promoting their work. So whether it's on a blog, whether it's on in printed form, whether it's on our website, there's a private group for them where they communicate. There's also a public page besides the website where people from other countries can interact with them, because a lot of our members do also travel, and so they're able to connect with people through either of the groups that we have. And some of the people on the private group that we have on Facebook have been with us from the beginning. So we basically really know each other. Even though we're in the 80 plus membership, we're pretty close as a group.
And then how many people participate in the national paint out or worldwide paint out?
I promote that constantly, any place that I can. And we start doing promoting, and we start doing some of the sign-ups in February every year, and it pretty much goes past the September deadline, and we put up as many as we can. We publish as many as we can, and we also do things promoting as far as the Facebook public page so that people are aware of it, and then we give them instructions, and the people that are not members and people that are members, of course, will post all of their photos right on the Facebook page.
And how many do you get participating worldwide?
In numbers?
Yeah.
One of our biggest group is Brazil, and they always have 100 plus people that are participating. And then we'll have people like Italy and Spain, and they'll probably have maybe 50 to 60. We don't always see all of them because artists are like herding cats. You can't always get a large photo of everybody. So sometimes I see, smaller groups, but they're all part of the group.
Well, I think the reason I'm asking the question is that I think, we tend to focus on plein air painting in America because we are Americans. This podcast has, I think, 91 different countries listening to it. It's got this massive reach now, and I'm trying to get a feel for how many people are plein air painting around the world, because I think that we should make sure that they're all feeling inclusive or feel included, and that they're all part of the massive community of this movement and this tribe. And so I'm curious, just like how many people totally you think participate. You don't require them to tell you, or you don't have a count. It sounds like it's just kind of like everybody go paint on this day. What is that day?
Oh, it's this year. It's the 6th through the 8th of September,
Okay.
and that's on our website too, which is www. Let me get this here right. www.i-p-a-p.com.
Okay, and that stands for International.
Plein Air Painters.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, it's a long name, so we went with the letters.
So I want to probe on something else because you touched on something that I don't think we think about is if in your particular case, you're an artist who's living in Canada, you were used to sending paintings to galleries in the States. Is that something you just simply can't do? Are you prohibited from doing that, or is it just so much effort and paperwork that it's just not worth it?
Sometimes it includes, sometimes you'll go over the border and it will be dependent on who's on that hour. And if you went back, you'd get a second opinion on something if you went back an hour later. One of the things that we did do, we're going back a few years with this, we did a world tour of contemporary landscape artists with another organization called Landscape Artists International. And it was a 2-year tour, and I believe we had about 20 something people that chose to participate. They didn't have to, being part of either organization, but they could choose to. And we showed different places. We showed in museums, we showed in galleries, we showed everywhere from the East Coast, the Carpelli's Museum in Newark, I think it's Newark or Newburgh, to BC, a schoolhouse gallery that was out in BC. What we ended up having to do was store the paintings somewhere so that we weren't constantly sending things back and forth across borders. And so we would have hosts, which were, these people were part of our exhibit. We would have hosts in different cities. I think we did 2 or 3 in Orlando. But we would store the stuff so that we didn't have the paperwork going back and forth over the borders all the time. And we did it for 2 years and did it with another member. She was the tour coordinator. We actually had a book done. Michael Chesley Johnson and Linda Riccici both were very instrumental in doing the organization for this tour. I was able to kind of sit back a little bit and give help as it was needed, but I wasn't in the front lines with it. But the tour went very well. We did advertising for it. We had postcards that were sent out. We had good attendance. We had one in New York City that we did, but this was going back about 6 years ago before a lot of this border stuff started. So it's even more important now to have an organization that's borderless because, like for instance, the other day I had a conversation on Facebook with someone in Russia that was asking about participating in the paint out. And then I had a conversation with a woman in Brazil. And so with these, I always look up the Google translation and try to work back and forth with the emails that way. And then finally, the woman that was asking me had probably sent me like 9 or 10 emails. And finally, I said to her, I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was really saying the right things. I'm sorry, I really don't understand Portuguese. And she emailed me back in perfect English after going back and forth like 10 times. Right. So I do get all these neat emails from people that want to know more about the plein air movement and they want to know more about how they can participate. And when they tell me, okay, we've got a small group here, and then they show me paintings they're doing, it just blows me away.
Well, to that point, I would love to hear from people around the world who, not necessarily people who are just in your group, but people who are listening around the world. I'd like to hear your story, hear the size of your groups. Are you painting alone? Have you found other people? How many painters are in your areas or your countries that you know of? Because we really want to make sure that that this is an international community. And I think what you're doing, Jack or JR, is that you're really facilitating this in a big way. And I think it would be great to explode this in a much bigger way. I like the idea of having a focused weekend where everybody in the world gets together and paints and then puts that out there, because it's also good for awareness of plein air painting in our communities, but also to create that sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, etc. So I hope that people will email me, Eric at PleinAir Magazine, and just let me know your story. Let me know about your group, because we're really interested. Of course, that'll give us ideas for stories for the magazine as well. So, how are you going to continue this? Is there somebody who's going to pick it up for you at the point at which you don't want to do it anymore? What's that all look like?
I think it really depends on how much people feel that the organization is of value to them. I'm perfectly willing to stay. I do have an advisory panel that in all the years that they've done it, and I don't think we had one for about 3 years into the organization, but after that we did. In all those years, they were given a 2-year term, and they chose to stay on after that. So I have support when I need it, and I do ask them different policy things, but I'm perfectly willing. That plein air painting to me is pretty much the only type of painting that I'm really interested in it. I find that it's, well, for instance, I do a workshop in Maine every year on a tiny island called Monhegan Island.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah.
It's a 1 mile square area island. And I've done it for the last, this is our 17th year that I'm doing it with a clinical psychologist. And she does visualizations in the workshop. And we're not looking to teach someone how to draw a tree or paint a branch, or we're looking to give people the confidence to use their creativity, and to encourage them to use their creativity through their filters instead of trying to fix themselves because of all the things that they have learned in their life or inherited and gotten to do things in a very certain specific way. We're trying to get people to have more freedom as far as letting things flow through them. And I don't think there's any better way to do that than being out in the atmosphere, hearing the ocean, the seagulls, feeling the breeze and the sun, and while you're painting something in the environment that it exists. And to me, it's like a form of meditation. And so I think for that reason, I'm never going to be a quick, fast painter, because I just enjoy being there so much that I'm never in a hurry to get finished with something. And it's just it's a way for me to be in the moment, and I'm sure it is for just about every plein air painter out there.
Absolutely. So since you teach, and since you're involved in this kind of unique workshop, maybe you can give us a couple of hints that might be helpful to our listeners, that either have to do with the specifics of painting or maybe the specifics of combining the psychology with painting.
I think for me, I got interested in psychology many years ago. And I think for me, I did a tiny podcast the other day. For me, painting is something that comes through you. Art is something that comes through your filters, something that makes it yours uniquely. It's something that you can say in a way that only you can say it. And art to me is not something that hangs on a wall. It's something that you share personally with people. And I think that painting to me is I've used it for communication for many years. To me, it's a language that you use. Our languages are a bit basic, because we basically use symbols that we've learned from when we were children. And some of those symbols and filters don't do us any good anymore, but we hang on to them because it's what we're comfortable with and it's what we know. And you know that yourself. When you and I were both learning how to draw, we would draw things that we knew and not things that we were actually looking at. And that was because we were using these childhood symbols that I think if I went out on the street and asked someone to draw me a man, somebody would draw me a stick figure, because these symbols don't do us, they don't have any value to us anymore, but we hold on to them so much. And so I try to give people a little bit of insight into exactly how they can use these filters, because we have so much at our disposal, and it's up to us to weed through all of it so that some of us can come through and we're not just repeating or mimicking what somebody else was doing. If the whole world of painters wanted to be Rembrandt, that they might study, they might wish to do it, but that wouldn't make them special, even if they could paint as well as Rembrandt, because they're not Rembrandt. So I think in the end, it's all about, like, be who you are, own who you are, let people know where you're coming from, because everybody's different. I can't paint like you can, because you're saying things that I'm not capable of saying. So I think being an individual and working in plein air, I think gives us a leg up on a lot of things. I'm a master photographer. I kind of got sidestepped a little bit when I met Charles, because he's such a fantastic photographer. But I would never dream of painting from a photograph, because if I'm taking a serious photograph, I've already said what I wanted to say about that subject. And so me putting it in a different medium, I wouldn't really be saying any more than I already said. So I think I'm in the school of thought where, like Robert Henry would do memory paintings. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yeah.
And he would have students draw from a model, but the model would be in one room and the drawing would take place in another room. And so he was training them memory-wise. And he would have them go into the room where the model was, and they could do a sketch there, but they couldn't bring the sketch into the room where they were actually working. And so I think another part of plein air painting is that it trains you to do that.
Well,
I know it has for me.
How does it train you to do that if you're able to look at your source the whole time?
Well, when you know yourself, when you're outside, your lighting could completely change within 10 minutes.
Or 10 seconds.
Or 10 seconds. which is one of the ways I got to be a watercolor painter years ago, because my very first trip was to this island, and I had no idea how quickly stuff was going to change out there, because it's an island. There's nothing, it's just the clouds would blow over, and so I started doing these little watercolor sketches so that I could have these quick little color notes of what was changing so quickly out there. And then I ended up basically putting my oils away and just doing watercolors for like almost 25 years, because it was the only thing that got me away from the tight schooling that I had at Munson Williams Proctor.
Well, this has been fascinating. I'm really interested more in that. I think that in terms of your teaching, what are you focusing on with your students when you're teaching plein air painting at your workshops in Monhegan?
I'm focusing on what I usually do is Molly is is the clinical psychologist that I work with.
Yeah.
And Molly starts the workshop out by doing a visualization for them. And what that does is, we started doing that probably about 10, 12 years ago. When people get somewhere, I don't care if you're going someplace to paint or you're just traveling, the first day and a half, you have to get rid of the baggage, the emotional baggage that you have with you, because you're thinking about whether you closed the garage door and whether you turned on the alarm, turned off the burner of the stove. You have all this stuff, and then you have all your travel stuff. Maybe you missed a flight and your baggage got lost or something. And so we were finding it was taking them like a day and a half to get into a space where they could accept instruction and they felt relaxed enough to really start painting. And so she started this visualization with them, and we found miraculously that it would take them from day 2 of painting immediately into a mood where they were accepting of what we were telling them. So then what I do after that is I will basically tell them they're in a new place and they're seeing a whole bunch of stuff, and everywhere you look on Monhegan, you have to come paint with us sometime, Eric.
Yeah, I'd like that. I've painted on Monhegan.
Have you?
Yes, I love Monhegan. It's fabulous.
Oh. Well, then everywhere you look, there's a painting that's waiting for you.
Yeah, it's a fabulous place. Unfortunately, the time I painted there, I had to paint in the rain because of the 2 days I was there. It rained the entire time.
So I tell them, because I get all kinds of people. I get engineers, I get oncology surgeons, one year I had 5 people that were all art teachers of various classes, everything from preschool to university. And what I found was that they all have a skill, and if you don't start instructing right away, they start to talk in a painting way on their canvas. So I pretty much watch them for like a day and a half to see where they're going, and I either try to help them. If they want to learn something new, fine, they're going to pick up something. You should always have an open mind that you could pick up at least one thing from a workshop. But I also get to see what they're trying to do. And what I try to do is just help them refine it a bit, because I don't want to change what they're saying. If I see something, sometimes I'll come up to someone and they will be so much in right brain that I will see them stroking the same area of the canvas over and over without reloading their brush. They're so into it. So unless I see somebody doing something that's going to sabotage the rest of their painting, I pretty much watch what's going on. And if I feel that they're going in the wrong direction with something, I'll maybe point it out just so that they stop and realize what they're doing, because sometimes they are in right brain, and I don't want to interrupt, because it's all about now. It's not about, okay, you're doing that stroke wrong.
So it's not formulaic so much as helping them be more intuitive.
Helping them be more intuitive, but you wouldn't believe the paintings that come out of that workshop. And actually, they don't believe it.
Interesting. And do you think the primary reason is because of this visualization?
I think the visualization has a lot to do with it, because going back to the symbol thing again, symbols are so ingrained in what we do that I could watch somebody drawing a table where you could only see 3 or 2 of the legs, and they still draw 4 of the legs, because it's what they know and not what they actually see.
Interesting. Well, this has been fascinating. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Actually, we are going to be doing the paint out in September. And then just prior to that, we're going to be putting out a call for some signature members. We do have some members that are either retired or aren't able to go out and do PleinAir anymore. And we still value those members. They at that point they become lifetime members for us, but they're not part of our signature group anymore. And so we invite other artists to apply for signature membership, and look forward to getting more people in the organization, and really looking forward to the paint out this year.
Well, that's terrific. Well, I'd encourage everybody to participate. Why not? I mean, you don't even have to be a member. It'd be fun to have everybody do that. You know, there's a gallery in Utah, a Loom Gallery, which does Where in the World, which is kind of a day when everybody does something similar. So a lot of people participate in that. I think it'd be fun if everybody participated in the Worldwide Paint Out. The dates again are September
6th, 7th, and 8th.
All right.
They can do 1, 2, 3, however many they want.
And the website is i-p-a-p.org?
.com.
.com. All right.
.com. Yeah.
Well, JR, thank you so much for being in the PleinAir podcast, and thanks for organizing people and getting them included in this PleinAir movement internationally. And I think it's a great thing that you've done. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You should come up paint with me sometime on Mohegan again.
Well, I'd like that very much.
Sunshine.
I think I got to get a couple of kids into college first, and then my time frees up. But you know, I will say the same thing to you. We have our event in the Adirondacks every year, and so you know, we're not too far away. I guess 8 hours drive maybe from where you are. But
yeah, well, you know, I used to do workshops for the Old Forge Art Center up there.
Ah, okay. Well, we're about an hour from there, so that'd be terrific.
All right.
Well, we'll have to figure out a way to get together and paint.
Yes, let's do that.
And I'll remind everybody around the world listening to this, drop me a note, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Drop me a note. Let me know where you're painting, what you're doing. If you hear this, you can probably figure out how to communicate with us, and we can use Google Translate if not. And it'd be nice to hear from people. And, of course, if you have story ideas, anybody listening, we always want story ideas for PleinAir Magazine or for OutdoorPainter.com or the PleinAir Today newsletter. And so thank you again, JR. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you again to J.R. Baldini. I love what she's doing. I think the more community that we have, the more we can be involved in our community, the happier we're all going to be. How about we do some marketing ideas?
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhodes, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
In the Marketing Minute, I try to answer your marketing questions, and you can always email me, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to mention where you're from, your name and your town, right? Because sometimes they don't, like a couple of them I've got today. So here's one from Fernando Mishley. Fernando Mishley. Sorry, Fernando. He asked, what's the best way to approach and get representation from galleries? Well, the best thing to do is to put yourself in their shoes. Anytime you want to sell somebody on you or something, put yourself in their shoes. Imagine that you're working in a gallery. You're trying to get things done. You're talking to customers, and the phone rings, or somebody walks in the door, and they say, hi, I'm an artist, and I'd like to discuss getting into your gallery. Well, when you're busy, it's annoying. And I know you're going to say, well, it's their job. Well, their job is to sell art. Their job is to find artists, but they have all the artists they want and need anyway. So they're always looking for somebody a little extra good or something that's unique. But they're getting 50, 60, 100 emails a week. They're getting unsolicited packages. I watched a gallery owner open and trash 50 packages while I was sitting there with him, people sending unsolicited packages about their work. And he just said, you know, I have to go through it, but I don't read it. You know, it's just too much. He said, I get twice as many emails as this. It's really annoying. Most galleries are looking for artists who will sell, and their solicitations from you are bothersome. So how do you get around that? Well, I have in my art marketing boot camp series a whole thing on how to get into galleries. But one of the essential things is you want them to see you and you want them to invite you in. For instance, I met with an artist this week who was in town shooting a video. He's running ads in our magazine, Fine Art Connoisseur, and he said 2 different galleries contacted him about representing him. Now, it didn't happen immediately because they want to watch you. They see your work. They say, oh, it's good work. Let's see what he puts in next time or she puts in next time. And they watch you. One gallery owner told me he's been watching a couple of artists over the course of a few years. And at some point, as they develop and they get better, he might contact and put them into the gallery. So that's one thing. It's always better if they call you. It puts you in more of a position of power, actually. And you want to be invited in. Being invited in is a lot better than kind of pushing your way in. So look for ways to get them to invite you. Now, there's a lot of ways to do that. For instance, you can get to know other artists who they know, who maybe they can suggest you, etc. They're watching for your consistency and the variety of things, and they're looking at it sometimes for years, so be patient. But really understand that they're evaluating you from the standpoint of, will this sell? Because if it's not going to sell, they're not going to sell it. Here's another question from David Cruz. Again, I don't know what town. David, shame on you. Got to tell me the town. Anyway, David says, I have a question about selling art online. It seems that most artists' websites don't give prices for the work, but rather ask the potential buyer to inquire with the artist. Do you think it's a good idea, a good strategy, or is it better to clearly state the price on the website? Well, David, it's a matter of philosophy. People want people to call. Why? So they have a chance to sell them, to talk to them, maybe to get their name, maybe to justify the price. There's an old philosophy, and that philosophy is whenever the price is mentioned before value is established, you never get your price. You have to establish value, and that's why people do this. Establishing value is building credibility by talking about your awards, your shows, your collectability, maybe who collects you, getting the fact that you're already getting these high prices. That establishes value. So you can understand why people want you to call. But this is an internet world. And quite frankly, I'll look at things, and I'm sure you do too, in the middle of the night, and you're like, I don't want to have to call. You always see, call for inquiry, or, you have to fill out a form. I never do any of that stuff because I don't want to do it. I just want to know what the price is. And so if somebody says call for price, I move on. Now, again, it's a philosophy, but you're probably losing. For every one that calls, you're probably losing 50 that won't call. So if you're selling online, I think you look for a chance to establish value right there where the painting is being seen, where you're talking about the value of you as the artist, and when they're looking at your site. And some will buy online. I know a gallery who sold a $650,000 piece of sculpture to a foreign country. The person went online, they saw the price, didn't negotiate, put their credit card in, and it was shipped to them. Everything worked beautifully. So you obviously don't want to ship it until you make sure the credit card's going to go through. But I think that, today in this world, you have to be willing to operate the way people want to operate. So I hope this helps. Anyway, that's been the Marketing Minute. Thank you again for listening today to the PleinAir podcast. I hope you'll come paint with us at Ghost Ranch this fall, is September. You can learn about that at fallcolorweek.com. Also, I have this blog I do on Sunday mornings. It's just kind of fun for me to do. It's about life, philosophy, art, sometimes not art. Anyway, check it out. It's called Sunday Coffee. And if you go to coffeewitheric.com, you can sign up to get it for free. This is always fun. Let's do it again sometime, like next week. I'll see you then. My name is Eric Rhodes. I'm the founder and publisher of PleinAir magazine. And remember, let's say it together, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
This has been the PleinAir podcast with PleinAir magazine's Eric Rhodes. You can help spread the word about PleinAir painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 PleinAir painting tips. tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.